So last week we talked about the law of polarity. I'm going to talk about these two really quickly. The law of energy and the law of entropy. So the law of energy says that energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. And then entropy is the measure of a disorder of a system, right? Entropy also describes how much energy is not available to do work. I found this very interesting. The more disordered a system and higher the entropy, the less of a system's energy is available to do work. The more disordered a system, the higher the entropy, which is the measure of the disorder.
Yeah, so the more chaotic something is, the more it falls apart.
The more it falls apart. Because there's not, and the less energy, I really like that. The less energy there is available to do work. The more chaotic your thoughts, the more chaotic you keep your environment of your desk. I've seen some of y'all's drawers. They're frightening. Right? Oh, well, let's just say that when Brian changed desks, a lot of things came out that he didn't even know were there. He took a drawer out and there was like stuff behind the drawer.
He got
like
socks in there.
Right?
Clean socks in case mine get wet out here.
That's right, clean socks. Always have an extra pair of socks. I mean, that's a good thing when you're hiking, but so be careful, right? Like Eric was talking about your thoughts. The more disordered your thoughts are, the less energy you have to put toward doing something useful, right? Doing something productive, not busy, productive. Like you may be busy with all your little thoughts running around in your head and you're like, oh, I gotta do this, oh, I gotta do that, you're disordered. No, what do you do first? What do you do second? What do you do third, right? You gotta get that order. So something that I really like that Myron Golden talks about is, and this kind of goes along with what Eric was saying, faith versus doubt, right? Everybody knows that faith is like a belief in something. I have faith that this endeavor is going to work out. I have faith that whatever, right? Faith in God, faith in whatever, your abilities, whatever. We often think that doubt is the absence of belief, but it is not, right? Last week we learned the law of polarity. For everything, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? If there's abundance, there's lack. If there's success, there's failure. If there's joy, there's sorrow. Like you can't know one without the other, right? These are just two sides of a coin called belief. Doubt is merely the belief that the outcome you don't want is going to happen. Faith is the belief that the outcome that you do want is going to happen. They're both belief. We think that this means we don't believe in it. No, you believe in something. It's just the bad thing, the thing that you don't want. And you spend so much time thinking about the outcome that you don't want, right? You get into that disordered thinking, that chaotic thinking, that you don't have enough energy to put into the belief that the outcome that you do want is going to happen. Because what is energy, right? We have to put our energy into something. And you have to take energy from over here and move it over here. So you got to take the energy of your belief in the negative outcome and move it over here. It's like algebra, right? You got to move things to the other side to isolate the unknown, right? So that's interesting. That just hit me. So if you have 2 minus n equals 4, then you have to take the 2 over here, right? So that n equals 4 plus 2. It becomes a positive when you move it over, right? If you take your belief in the negative outcome and you move it over here into faith, in your belief in the outcome that you really want, you're taking this negative and putting it over here, right? And guess what? This is a bet, right? You've figured out what the unknown quantity is. What's the unknown quantity in what you're doing, right? Maybe you're just believing, right? Jeremy, you keep saying, I got to get out of my head. I got to get out of my head. You're believing that the outcome you don't want is the most likely outcome. Instead of getting over on the other side of the equation and saying, no, I have the skills, I've been taught, I know the word tracks, so I'm going to believe that the outcome I want is the most likely outcome, okay? This also goes along with reaping and sowing, right? The more you sow the belief of doubt, you're going to get it. And here's what I like what Myron Golden was saying. Because he did, I don't know if anybody you know who Napoleon Hill is, but he wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. Well, Myron's podcast, his study that he did was called Think and Grow Poor. Because if you're over here all the time, you're going to think and you're going to grow poor. Like, it's real easy. You can get there really fast, right? Energy and entropy. Entropy, like we've talked about, to move forward requires intention. For something to degenerate into the chaos, it just requires you to hang out, right? You don't have to do anything for those negative thoughts to show up. We're all that way. We all have those negative thoughts like Eric was talking about. But it takes energy to flip them around and get them on the other side of the equation, right? So he talks about reaping and sowing. So whatever you sow, right, whatever seed you put down in your life, you're going to sow it. And what he talks about is that doesn't happen right away, right? It happens down the road. And the spiritual principle of reaping and sowing is that you will multiply whatever you sow, right? He likes to say nothing in nature grows by like addition. It's always multiplication. Think about a dandelion. Right, when it gets the flowers gone and it's all the white stuff, how many little things are in there? Like, I don't know, 100, right? That's how it's going to multiply. There was not one on there, and let's hope, right? It's nature grows by multiplication. And when you reap and you sow, it's going to be multiplication. So if you're in here on this side of the equation and you're sowing the belief that the worst outcome is the most likely outcome, it's going to show up down the road, but it's going to show up in spades, as they say, right? So it works both ways because we know about the law of polarity, right? This is just the law of polarity. I'm going to believe in the worst outcome, or I'm going to believe in the best outcome. And if you have a choice, like, why aren't we choosing to believe in the best outcome, right? But it does make it harder to believe in this outcome if, like Eric said, you're not using the tools. If Brian shows you how to do a walk around and he's a badass at it, why aren't you taking those things and using them, right? It's hard to have faith if you don't have any tools or a skill set, right? That's probably why you're believing in the worst outcome, because you don't have the tools or the skill set that you need to get over here on the other side of the equation. All right, so then this week I was also hearing Eric Thomas talk about conflict and the fact that there's no change without conflict, right? Intention, right? Disruption follows intention. And he's like, this isn't the kind of conflict that, he's like, this isn't hood conflict. He's like, this is spiritual conflict with yourself. You want to walk around and you want to tell everybody else, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. Well, why did you say this? And you better not talk like that to me. And all of these things that we say, right? Instead, why aren't you looking in the mirror and having that conflict with yourself? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You're telling everybody else they should, or don't talk to me like that. Don't say that to me. Why aren't you looking in the mirror And having the conflict with yourself, and that's what he's talking about, is having that conflict with yourself that will push you to change. If you're not looking in the mirror, right, and saying, why aren't you out there doing everything that you can do? Why aren't you studying the 12 steps of the sale? Why aren't you learning? Why aren't you taking notes when Eric tells you something, or Jonathan tells you something, or Brian shows you something, or Rick gives you advice? Why aren't you taking notes? Get that conflict going with yourself, right? And get yourself out of this state of belief and over here in this state of faith, right? Because the more chaotic your thoughts are, the more you just swirl around. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do about that. You have tools all over this place for you. You have me, you have Eric, you have Brian's been here a long time, Romar, Rick, Jonathan. Like, we've all been here. We've been doing this. We've been building a business. All you have to do is ask. But if you just run around going, I don't know, then you have no energy to put out into the world in a positive space. And you're not going to be able to get yourself on the side of the equation. Okay? So think about it today. Are you in doubt? Believing that the worst outcome is going to happen? Are you in faith? Right? Like Eric says, flip the script. Flip the script. But it takes energy. It takes energy, and what's the first thing that's going to show up as soon as you set an intention? Disruption. Right? That's the way it works, because intention and disruption, the law of polarity. Okay? So, anytime you try to make a change, that's what's going to happen. So, ask yourself where you are today, which side of the equation, and you may be on both sides depending on the area of your life you're thinking about, right? So that's the question today, big question today. Am I believing in the worst outcome is most likely, or believing that the best outcome is the most likely, and putting my energy over here and moving this forward? Or am I over here believing the worst outcome is the most likely, and what usually happens to us when we're over here is we don't take action. So when you don't take action, entropy follows, right? It just starts to fall apart. All right, so one thing I want to start doing too on Fridays after the meeting, I'm going to put the board up, the blank sheet. I want everybody on Fridays, on that, like, just as you have a minute after the meeting, I want you to write something that you're grateful. Every Friday I want to start doing that. I had this thought last week and I forgot to do it, but we need to start being grateful, right? And that's going to put us in a better mindset, right? Whatever you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be something here. It can be anything in your life that you're grateful for, so that it brings us to mind and it starts our day in a positive space. All right, that's all I got today.